The other day I read a Star Tribune article featuring some efforts in Otter Tail County regarding new resident recruitment. Did anyone see that piece? I think it's from about a month ago. It's not totally current, but in that article, there was a passing reference to a Pew Research study that showed that, according to them, half of all Americans think that rural living would be ideal. And we also kind of informally track trends here in our Ely community, and we know that we are attracting new residents at from what we can tell, an increasing rate. So this new Elyites presentation, the opportunity to meet folks who are new to the community, used to be something that was done about twice a year. And since I've been coordinating this program June 2021, this is our 7th Meet New Elyites presentation. And so that's really exciting to think that we know we've got something really special going on in this community, and we can see that we are getting new folks to town. It's really exciting to meet them. But I want to take a moment to just express gratitude to Elton Brown. He has always, or as far as I've known, at least this last year, been spearheading the Meet New Elyites initiative, and he's been doing that for a while. His persistence and welcoming nature is a benefit to the whole community. So thank you, Elton.
Okay, we're going to start with a trend. People who are here who get their parents to come here. First, I'm going to call up Lacey's parents. They're very shy. They don't want to come up, but they're going to come up. Kim and Dwayne Squire.
I didn't know.
No, they didn't know.
They didn't know.
Tell me we had to come up here.
Hi, I'm Kim, Dwayne, we're Lacey's parents, and it took her, what, 4 years to get us to come up here. She kept telling us and we kept visiting, and it's kind of like, wow, we really like the vibe here. And then we found a perfect little house for us. We live 5 doors down from our daughter, and her dog Wendell, semi-famous around here, just comes over and gets cookies in the morning from Grandma and Grandpa. So that's, we didn't really plan on speaking, right? But if there are any complaints, you can direct them to Lacey, so.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that if I do happen to piss anybody off or offend anybody, go see Lacey.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to Ely. Andrea Dorr is did you fill it Outward Bound? And you met her? Oh wow! I met her husband there. She kept meeting me out in the Boundary Waters. I said, "How do you know my name?" The first time out in Basswood in the winter, and she said, "I just went to the bar." I didn't remember, but anyway, they have a baby, Reed, and Andrea's mom is babysitting, and Reed is having his nap now. So we get Nathan.
Yeah, the leftover. You don't get the best part of our family.
Stand back behind the podium. You're welcome to move, but that's a good threshold for you.
I'll hide behind the podium. That's fine. So yes, I'm Nathan. We pronounce it Dare officially, even though it's D-O-E-R-R, Dare, like you dare someone to do something. And you know, I will just maybe start with that we are following the trend that we have a daughter who lives here, as Elton said. She's been out here 10 years in Ely. And officially, she and Brian met in the St. Croix area. They were working on trails and all of that. And then they were out on Isle Royale together working on trails. And they worked for environmental learning centers in Finland. And so they've had a couple of other places. Then they went out to Oregon for a couple of years. And then they came out here for Voyager Outward Bound. And they really believe in that organization and its mission of helping young people. So they've really committed to being there for a long period of time. Andrea just this spring became the program director out at Voyager Outward Bound, and Brian, my son-in-law, officially works as in the trips room. If some of you know about Voyager Outward Bound, so he's in logistics. He breaks out all the equipment and all the food and all of that for the outings that they have in the boundary waters. So yeah, let me just say that Naomi was sorry she couldn't be here today with childcare. You know how that goes. Reed woke up about 3:30 this morning when his dad came over, and so he was ready by 11:15 to take a big long nap. So it was an easy decision to make. He wouldn't have been a happy camper, I think, being here. He would have definitely been the youngest person here. Reed is let's see, November's his birthday. So whatever that makes him, 21, 22 months, somewhere around there. And he has a new brother or sister on the way. We don't know which, but that it will also be November. So it's nice to have family planning because Brian and Andrea need to be able to they have more time during the winter to be parents than they do during the summer. So, and we knew that, as grandparents. So last summer, we came out for officially 4 months. We came out May 1st, and we rented, if any of you guys know Tyler Fish, who works out with the cross country ski team, one of the coaches out there, we rented his place because he and Carly actually go to Oregon every summer. So we were 4 months out on Johnson Creek Road and got to experience Ely that summer and last summer, and we had 4 bear visits, and we got to see a fisher, which is pretty rare according to my son-in-law. I think he said he's seen one in his 10 years here. But I was taking care of Tyler's chickens. He had 20 chickens out there, and so I was up with the chickens literally to let them out of their coop, and was coming back kind of half asleep about 6:15 in the morning, and looked over and saw this creature on the driveway that I knew I'd never seen before. I mean, that was, it was like, okay, this is something new, which is kind of fun. And then when this creature that I didn't know what it was started coming towards me rather than heading towards the woods, I decided I would kind of head towards the porch because I think they kind of have a little bit of a nasty disposition. He was probably there because of the chickens, looking for food. And anyway, I was sad that I was not with my phone because I would have loved to have taken a picture of this picture. So, but anyway, that was a fun little piece. So am I supposed to go back and tell about myself?
Yeah.
You want me to do that? I mean, I'm a retired pastor, so, there's stories about pastors, that take off their watches and put them on the podium, and what does that mean? It doesn't mean a blank thing, they just act like they're timing themselves. But I'm a retired Lutheran pastor. So one of the communities that we've gotten involved in here is Grace Lutheran Church. I know we have the 2 Lutheran churches here, the Missouri Synod and the Evangelical Lutheran Church. Well, I'm retired Evangelical Lutheran Church pastor, so we joined Grace Lutheran and enjoy that community. And they have been very helpful for us in terms of being a place where we could connect. Let me just go back a little bit in terms of Naomi and I and some of our background. Elton said I could talk for a while because he said that you had like 4 presentations or something. So, but anyway, I grew up in South Texas, and I grew up in very small rural places. So Ely's the big city. The biggest place growing up before I went to college was 600 people. So I grew up in a community of 375 and a community of 600. And there were ranches in the area, a lot of goat and sheep ranches, and white-tailed deer and turkey. And I say it's a pretty area of Texas, south central Texas, around the San Antonio area. So, Texas has a lot of armpits and a lot of wide open expanses of nothingness. But it also has some beauty, if you get up in the hill country in some of those areas. And I was fortunate enough to grown up in the hill country of Texas. And maybe a little bit more about that later. We may end up being wimps, which means that we might be here 6 months and 6 months in South Texas, because we have all of our siblings still down there. And we have lots of nephews and nieces down there. And we might need a break from some of the grandparenting here in Ely as well. But so the plan, I have a 94-year-old mother who unfortunately just recently fell. The plan was to be there and to winter with her and to actually have some good quality time with her. And now she's in a nursing home, nursing care, and getting some therapy for a totally broken femur right below the ball. She was out taking care of her plants and tripped and went down. She had her Crocs on. But anyway, we still plan to look at that, and there's a potential that none of my siblings, they all have their homes in Texas, that we may end up buying my mom's place. And that might be what we'll do. If not, we might do something else in terms of being able to enjoy the less than 100-degree weather in their 6 months of the year and enjoy the beautiful temperatures that we have here in Ely the other 6 months out of the year is sort of the plan. And I don't know how many of you do that. Let's take a little poll. How many of you are permanent residents, or that don't go anywhere? Okay, quite a few of you, most of you, actually. And let me see the other hands. How many of you actually do, 6 months, or sometime someplace else? Okay. Yeah, so kind of a combination. I have found that people don't necessarily look down upon you here in Ely if you do the 6 months. They still welcome you to the community for the time that you're here. So anyway, grew up in Central Texas. Was there only till I was 22 years old, till I graduated from college. Met my beautiful wife, Naomi, at Texas Lutheran, singing in the choir there. And went up, I was a year ahead of her, went up to seminary in Dubuque, Iowa, Wartburg Seminary in Dubuque, Iowa. And she was a senior that year, so we had the year apart. We kind of tested whether this was something that was really a commitment to each other, and we found out that it was, and got married after my first year of seminary. And at that point, I ended up getting accepted into a satellite program that Wartburg Seminary had called the Denver House of Studies. And there were 10 of us who studied contextual education in a big home in downtown Denver that was made into 7 apartments for us seminary students right across from our Savior's Lutheran Church. And we were all assigned to a church to do our contextual work in the classes we were taking. And so our first year of married life was in Denver, Colorado. And why that becomes significant is that after I graduated I did my internship year in Colorado Springs, then only 60 miles south. And then as a result of having spent 2 years in Colorado, I knew a lot of people and got called back to my internship congregation and was there for 10 years in Colorado Springs. And then 11 years in Casper, Wyoming.
Remember I told you all the time in the world? I changed my mind.
Okay. All right, move it along. Okay, thank you. Go ahead and do this thing. Okay, you guide me as much as I need. Anyway, spent 44 years in the West. So we ended up, we sold our home in Littleton, Colorado. The places were Colorado Springs, Casper, and then it was Littleton, Colorado. So sold our place from Littleton, Colorado in April and moved out here. And, we love the adventure of new places. And again, having a daughter in Eden Prairie with 3 of our grandchildren and having Andrea here with 2 is definitely the draw. So I would say the 2 draws, for coming to this area were grandparenting and adventure. Love the outdoors. I've been up 54 14ers. We've hiked the entire Colorado Trail, 486 miles of the Colorado Trail, my wife and I. So we see lots of opportunities for adventure here. Okay, now I'll just cut it at that point. Naomi's dad was a pastor.
Oh, I got mixed up.
Yeah, I should have practiced before, after the public speaking, you know what those are. Stand up, speak out, shut up, sit down.
How many of you met the new owner of Motel Ely? Oh, here she comes. Edie Reamer.
So I'm usually pretty good about holding microphones next to my face, but wave me down if I accidentally move it too far away. Hi, I'm Edie Renner. I own the Motel Ely. We moved up here last July. We closed on the 15th, followed by like the next most chaotic like month of our lives. There was no transition. We'd hoped to close in May, so we would have some really nice transition into summer, but instead we, closed Blueberry Weekend. And we got to discover all the wonderful things about Ely. So I moved up here with my husband, Mike, and my 8-year-old son, Gordon. Basically, we ended up here because for the last 10, 15 years or so, people have been telling me to come to Ely. I worked at a summer camp near Colorado Springs, Shady Brook, if you know it, best place on earth, one of the best places on earth. And my coworker there kept saying, you really should go to the Boundary Waters thing. You should do that. That's your place. And I'm like, yeah. I'm not like a wilderness kind of bathroom girl. And so I kind of thought he was confused about how much he knew about me. And so I kind of ignored him. And then a few years later, I got a job and I was working in politics. And I had this boss who talked about the Boundary Waters all the time. He talked about how beautiful it was and how wonderful it was and how I really needed to go there. And we were crossing the state of South Dakota like 3 times a week together in a car. And so I would hear all about these Boundary Waters. Again, I wasn't sure. I'm not really a wilderness person. And then it just kept happening. And so finally, my husband and I came up and we did a 5-day trip in. And I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. This is the best. And then my poor husband never got to go on vacation anywhere else. So, and we went in with a 3-year-old that first time. And it was super fun, made a way better parent. There's nothing like not being able to tell your kid that there's another option to eat. He learned to eat whatever it was that was put in front of him in 5 days. And it was the greatest thing that ever happened to us as parents. So we really loved the Boundary Waters. And then we just kept coming up. And since I was like 18 years old, my husband and I love to travel. And so I've written a business plan for owning a motel or a hostel probably 7 times over the last 20 years. And then something happens, life, reality, whatever it is, has kept us from doing it. And then last spring, before last, I was like, all right, the Canoe on Inn is for sale. That is not the motel I own, just so you know. I own the Motel Ely. And I wrote up the business plan, and lo and behold, I had the down payment, and I was super excited. I was like, I'm coming up to look at it, and we're going to put an offer in. We're going to do it. And the real estate agent called the day we were leaving town and was like, it's sold today. I'm so sorry. And we decided, my friend and I decided to come up just on a whim, and the real estate agent said, there's this other motel. I don't know, it's a lot more money. You might not be into it. But we came up, we looked, and then we got to hike out to South Hegman and see the petroglyphs and had like a fun weekend in Ely in the middle of winter. And I went home with all the paperwork and I mulled it for like a month and a half, thinking I was absolutely bonkers doing it. And my husband said, yeah, that sounds good. Let's do it. I'm like, why not try? And nobody said no. The banker didn't say no. Nobody said no. I kept waiting for someone to be like, you've lost your mind. This is a crazy idea. And basically that is how we ended up in Ely. And so far, so good. We like it here. I think probably the only downside is that I don't get to go into the boundary waters in the summer, so I'm gonna have to figure out the side seasons in winter a little bit better, because I definitely missed my summer trip in, but we really enjoy it here. We came from a much bigger town. We've been living in Sioux Falls the last 10 years. I worked for the Alzheimer's Association doing fundraising, and it's a much bigger city with lots of different things. And so that's been a wee bit of a transition for us, figuring out, I don't know, where are the tacos? If somebody discovered where the tacos are, I would be into that. But we really have enjoyed the other things about Ely. There's been a fun exchange, you know. I don't think we ever knew our neighbors as well as we do here. Our school was a huge school with lots of complications, and it was a great school and we loved it. But our kid was in a classroom with 30 kids, and to be in a classroom with 15 kids here, there's nothing better. I mean, he gets this amazing personalized attention. I think, that question about rural living, that right there is kind of a magical thing. There isn't a kid in his class whose name I don't know and have probably met their parents. I don't know. I know many of you probably don't have little ones here, but that is so powerful and so cool. And we've really enjoyed that. And those of you who leave for 6 months of the year, well, it's really pretty here in the winter. I will tell you, everybody told me, oh, just wait till you spend the winter there. You'll be back in Sioux Falls before April. And we loved the winter. We loved the cold. I bought fancy boots because I was worried, but so far so good. We've been enjoying it. Is that all the good stuff? Do I need to tell more? Oh, my husband. There we go. I should talk about him. Sorry. So my husband, Mike, was a handyman in Sioux Falls, which has fit really well into owning the business. He's kind of become my own personal handyman, which is great. And actually, without it, we would not have been able to do what we've been able to do so far. He does still do some handyman work. For the most part, though, he'll just help you out. He doesn't want to do it as a real job up here. It's no fun to do it up here. It's a real job. But if you ever need anything, give us a holler. He's pretty happy to check out the little stuff. And if nothing else, teach you how to do it. He's done a really good job of running our family. It sounds strange, but he really has organized and planned. I don't have to do any of those things. And he usually cooks me dinner. He's on vacation this week though, so I am winging it by myself, and I'm not at it. My kids eat a lot of pizza. But that is Mike. And then in the winter, he's been helping out at the ice arena, which has been a fun, cool way to get to know a whole different population kind of outside of the service industry. And yeah, it's been kind of fun for him. And even though it is the coldest arena in the entire Northwoods. My kiddo played a game in -25 hockey, and they didn't think twice about it, which was really fun. That said, according to the people everywhere else, Ely has the fastest ice in the range because it's so stinking cold that the ice is frozen. Really very, very frozen. So that's a bonus, right?
Tell us a little bit about the Motel Ely.
Oh, so the motel is 17 rooms. My favorite thing about it is it has a lot of the original things to it. I'm the one with the funky sign. If you've seen it, we have color TVs. I do actually have color TVs. And for right now, I do still have in-room telephones, which has been really fun. The number of parents who I wiggled. The number of parents who show their kids the telephone and then call the front desk so that they can show them that it really works is the best. The bathrooms still have a lot of the original tile and the original bathtubs from the 50s. So I have a bathroom that is that pink tile. I have one that is the aqua tile, yellow, and I love that. We are a pretty basic motel. We don't do anything, I'm not a luxury motel, but we try to keep it really clean and really basic. And we've been kind of leaning into that vintage fun stuff. Been replacing lamp to the original kind of style lamp and the bedding. And if I can ever get curtains, that's the main goal. So that's the motel.
Are you going to keep that wonderful sign out there?
Yes, the sign will stay unless there's an act of God that takes it out for whatever reason, which I go to sleep at night worrying about every night. The sign will stay, because why not? It's awesome. What? Am I good? Okay.
I stopped at the hotel to ask how the members of our band, how many of you heard our Jumping Joseph a week or so ago? Yay, we had fun. Some of them stayed at the motel that night. I asked Edie, how did they comport themselves well? And she said they were not only well behaved, but one of them gave me some whiskey.
Had a really good time.
All right. Yeah, that's what I'm surprised that they were in trouble, yeah. So another institution here that brings people to town is the college. It used to be called BCC, and I can't remember what it's called now, but here comes Monica Rose. Would you be able to put that on here? You want to go?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Monica. Last November, I moved to Ely from Roseville, a suburb of St. Paul. I chose Ely because of the community college, which had educational programs that interested me. Initially, I was planning to move this coming fall, but the circumstances in the city were less than ideal, and I chose to move earlier than planned. I am currently studying to become a natural resource technician and would like to start a career in an outdoor capacity. In addition to holding down a full-time job as a custodian during these past 2 years, I was biking and using public transportation to get around the city. Over time, this way of life started to become very difficult to maintain. The size of Ely is ideal for someone who does not own a car. Everything is accessible by biking or hiking. I also appreciate the closeness of the lake and hiking trails. It is much easier to get into the woods without needing to drive 35 minutes. There are simple things about Ely that you might take for granted, such as the amount of trees and fresh water that are so easily accessible. I'm a 4-season bicyclist. The only thing that will stop me from biking is a big snowstorm. So you'll find me biking almost every single day. It's really fun. For the most part, sometimes it's hard, but I really enjoy it. So this summer, I took some time off work and I went bike camping a couple times. It was really great. I got chased out of the woods once by mosquitoes and black flies. Was not expecting that. I've also been studying trees and plants around the area, collecting leaves and cones and just getting to know the native species, which has been fun. I also recently purchased an inflatable kayak, and that's been great too. It's rated for whitewater rapids, so I can take it out pretty much in almost any condition. In my spare time, I enjoy making origami, acrylic and watercolor painting, and mixed media art creations. I'm also reading a book about the history of the Boundary Waters. It's called Down from Bathwood, I believe, and it's the history of the Finnish immigrants. It's been really interesting to see how people lived long ago. There's also a book I'm reading by, I think it's Sigurd Olsen, which is great. It's been a good read. So that's it. Anything else?
Steve Lampin is, of course, where are you from? Where did you come from?
Roseville. It's a suburb of St. Paul. Yeah, I grew up right by the state fairgrounds. I also spent a couple years in Texas. Right after high school, and I just visited the Dallas area. It's a little too hot there. So I definitely prefer the Four Seasons.
You tried the mountain bike trails yet?
Yeah, I went to Hidden Valley recently with my friend Grady back there.
Oh, Grady,
Yeah. So, yeah.
great.
Nice to meet you.
Ely High School and elementary school was privileged to have the wonderful Sarah Mason 7 years. But we couldn't complain when she announced that she was moving on. Our hearts were broken as the band teacher, but she had gotten to know the new guy, recommended him and touts him. So the kids are ready to move on with Carl Kubiak, this young man here.
Hi, everyone. Yes, my name is Carl Kubiak, and I am the new band teacher and a little bit of general music at Ely School. And I couldn't be more excited to have this opportunity. I'm from Bemidji, the Bemidji area, small town, and went to Duluth for a few years. Then I moved to New York City for 2 years, and it was not for me. Too many people. So I moved back during the pandemic. I lived in Fargo Moorhead. There's not enough trees there, so I had to move. So I taught this last year at Yorkwood School right outside of Cook and loved it. It was so nice to be back in the trees and the water and everything. And I played in the Wasabi Symphony with Sarah. And I was talking to her because she kind of let on that she's maybe thinking about moving on. The music community is very small and we always talk. So she said, I told her, I said, oh, if you're moving on, let me know because I would love to apply for the Ely job and come and move into this super beautiful community. So she enticed me with it and said, you need to apply right now. And I said, too late, I already did. So I couldn't be more excited. Yeah, pretty much I've done lots of different things. I love outdoors, love nature. You know, when I lived out in New York City, I was the graduate assistant of bands at my graduate school there. And it was great, you know, we got to travel to Phoenix and Las Vegas, and I had to coordinate it all, so that was fun, trying to transport 3 tubas, 2 string basses, contrabass clarinet, contrabassoon, and 2 harps on an airplane. No thanks, I will never do that again. But it was fun, you know, I got to play with people. So my main instrument is bassoon. If anyone in here has heard of bassoon, yeah, very niche. But that means I get cool opportunities. So my crowning jewel, I should say, of my musical career was my teacher, who was about this tall. My bassoon is bigger than her, and very sweet, but very direct and not mean, I would say, but very just like, get this done now. And if you don't have it done, why not? She came up to me and said, hey, I've got this gig for you to play. Rehearses these days, here's the repertoire, and it's paid. And I said, wait, you could have led with it's paid, and I would have done it. So I went to the rehearsal, and I wasn't expecting anything crazy, you know, not too hard repertoire. I'm just sitting there, warming up, testing my reeds, doing my thing, and then I think, oh, let me check out, let's see if I see any other Montclair State University students. And my jaw dropped because the whole woodwind section, the oboes in front of me is the New York City Ballet oboe section. The flute section was the New York Philharmonic, and the clarinet section was the Metropolitan Opera. And I went, why am I here? I am not nearly as good as these people. So then I got really scared and nervous, and I was like, oh my God. I asked my teacher, her name's Sasha, I said, Sasha, why? You didn't tell me that these people would be here. And she said, yeah, I know, I did that on purpose. Because I knew it would scare you. I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm holding on for dear life. But no, it was very incredible to be able to play with such high caliber musicians. And I really, you know, coming from a small town, and I never had any musical things like that happen in my life. So I want to come back to the small towns, give everybody, not just my kids at the school, but the whole community music, because it is the universal language. It is what unites us, and nothing better than listening to live music. So hopefully in the next years to come, we can get some more live instrumental music from all community members. Yeah. Sasha's her name. I did study with Jeff Campbell at UMD. Yep, I did. He was my first teacher, and he sadly has moved on now. Yep, to Central Michigan. Oh, really? Oh, you know Jeff? Ooh. Hopefully, I haven't told you the story.
So you're gonna play in the DSSO?
Yes, so I play in the Masabi Symphony regularly and pick up gigs every now and then. Like I go play with Bemidji sometimes, sometimes Grand Forks, but I'm also playing in the Duluth Superior Symphony. And I own a contrabassoon, so if you've never seen a contrabassoon, let me know and I'll show it for you. My eyes rattle when I play it because it's so low. Yeah.
I go to the Masabi concerts, they're great. I've always wondered, there's never any kids there, and I always wondered if teachers couldn't make it a extra credit or something, or go to the Masabi and say, can we get free tickets? I think these kids need to see adults, playing in an orchestra.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we, as music teachers, we do get free tickets for students. And I give them out to my students. I say, and how I do my grading, don't tell my kids, but how I do my grading is everyone starts at 60% and they have to do things to get points. So if they play a scale for me, that's a point. If they go and play in an outside ensemble like Masabi Symphony or a band or anything, that's 10 points. And that's a big chunk of your grade, a whole letter grade. So going to watch performances also counts for that too. But yeah, so that's what I would like to see more of as well. Yes.
Instrument.
It's weird. It's true. I chose bassoon, and I distinctly have this memory of my high school band director at the time, coming in at 4th grade and playing the bassoon for me. And I went, that's what I want to play. It's so weird. It's so unique. I just need to play it. However, they're expensive. So my uncle had a trombone and I was relegated playing trombone for 6 years. But then when I was in 11th grade, my band, I had a different band teacher every year of high school. That band director found a bassoon in my high school and said, all right, I said, dibs, I already call playing it. So yeah, then I played it, and as soon as I went to college, my teacher said, yeah, take everything you know about bassoon and throw it away, because you don't know anything. So I had to do a lot of extra work when I got to college. Yeah.
Have you done any solo concerts?
I've done many, many solo concerts, recitals all throughout my college degree. I won the concerto competition of my master's, which is pretty big accomplishment. I was performing against like 30 other people for the opportunity to play solo with the orchestra. And me and my roommate, actually, we won the competition. So we got to do that. Yes, I would love to do a concert here as well. So if you guys know of any piano players, let me know, because I will need a pianist.
Is the band room gonna be ready in the fall?
Is the band room going to be ready in the fall? I sure hope so. It is on track to be ready by the fall. I'm actually going to head there right after this, so scope it out. I got to see it it's either May or April. I came here for a day, and it was, it had all the walls and ceilings, so it looked good then. And then I came it was probably the end of June, and they said the flooring's in, the lockers are in, but I couldn't go in there obviously, so I'm gonna try to sneak my way in today and see what it looks like. Yeah. When am I going to move to Ely? In about 4 days. Yeah, 1st of August, I'll be moving in. It was incredibly hard to find housing, incredibly hard, but I just snatched up on the first thing that came my way. And I said, I'll make it work for a year and then keep my ears open for other places. Because I'm not moving from too far, just moving from Virginia. So pretty easy move. Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
See, that's what we got going for us, because Ely is such a great place. It attracts great people. We're really lucky. And now we have a bonus, not new Elyites, but old, former Elyites. So let's bring out Steve and Shirley Kopsch to tell us who they are. And Steve has got a story about this very place. Yes. They're from Oregon. No? That's what it says here. Oregon. You stand here, you can be on the video.
Behind the podium.
Yeah. Great, that's good.
Well, when we walked in today, Elton came over and introduced himself and asked me about us. And I said that we're tourists with deep roots in Ely, which is true. This is my wife Shirley, and she grew up in Ely too. Her parents came to Ely, the whole family came to Ely in the late 40s to take over the Salmon and Ford dealership. It became the Clausio Ford dealership, added a rare French name to the lexicon of names in Ely. But my own roots go back. My grandfather, paternal grandfather, was here before there was an Ely, and probably before there was a Florence, which was the original name of Ely, and it was Spalding location over in this direction where the city was actually located, and then got moved. But he came from a tradition of European peddlers and farmers, and he came to Ely. He came to Tower and started walking with a pack sack on a path from Tower to Ely, selling things like pots and pans and things that people who are living in tents, which is all Ely was at that time, just a little tent camp of miners. And it began his business career in Ely, which became very big by small town standards. He had a saloon on the corner of First Avenue and Sheridan Street, right where Canadian Waters is now. And then right next to that was a general store, and he used to order mining boots by the railroad carload every year. Yeah, every year. And then a meat market grocery store actually had its own slaughterhouse in the back for a while at least, and a farm on the east end of Ely, which was located west of Highway 1 and White Street to Boundary Street. It's mostly forested now. About half of it is a housing development my father developed in the 1950s during some of the good times in Ely. So we go back a long way there with that side of the family, and my grandfather on my mother's side came about that time too, not quite as early. He was a miner and a good one, and I know he was good because he was sometimes mentioned as the captain of the White Iron Mine. I doubt that he was the captain. The captain in mining terminology is a Cornish term. The Cornish people were fishermen who went mining when the fish weren't running. So their mining terminology, like captains, was like captain of the ship. They talked about sinking the shaft to go down and drifting away from the shaft. The tunnels that went away were drifts and this sort of thing. It was all mining, all Cornish nautical terminology. No, I lost my point of where I was going with that. My student, I was a college professor. My students would tell you that happened all the time. Maybe it did, but it also reminds me of the preacher here said that there's preacher jokes, and I have a favorite preacher joke, and I liked it because it kind of overlapped a little bit with my educational philosophy as well, and it's about a rural Southern pastor, small church Southern pastor, who was asked about the secret of his famous effective sermons. And he says, first I tells him what I'm going to tell him. Then I tells him what I done told him. And that was his secret. He said it was nothing more than that, just, driving the point home. And that was sort of mine too. But, oh, I know where I was going with it. My maternal grandfather was a miner and a good one. Or he would never have been a captain or a foreman as a Slovenian immigrant in English-speaking management mines if he weren't really good at what he did, but he hated it, absolutely hated it. Wanted to be his own businessman, and he and his brother built a saloon on the corner of Fifth and Camp, which is still there. The building is still there. It's now an apartment building. My uncle and my aunt and her husband bought it in the late 40s and converted it to an apartment building. It's owned by Burnside Lodge now owns it for some of their employees. So it's still there. But they were here early too. And one of the things that meant is that they had a little bit of success. One of them, a lot of success. The other one, enough that they would bring relatives over. And they did it on such a scale that, I ended up being related to half of Ely. And sometimes it would be a problem. Like my brother was, he was an early bloomer when it came to the subject of girls. And I was a late bloomer. He was an early bloomer. And in the summers, this is the 40s now, in the 50s, Whiteside Park was the center of tremendous activity. The rec department had robust programs going on, and that's where all the kids congregated. And my brother was very close to my mother. He confided in her very often. I was not close to my mother in that sense, but I was very close to my father. We had different people we confided in, but he came home one day and he told her that he saw a girl in the park that he really, really liked. And she said, oh, that's nice. Who is that? And he told her, and she said, Paul, she's your cousin. It's like, oh, wow, and then this happened several times to him, actually, because there was a big influx of expats, Ely, like us, Elyites like us, who kept coming back in the summer. So the town was full of people like that. But anyway, yeah, those are our deep roots, and it's great to be here. We're Oregonians now, and it is Oregon, not Oregon. It looks like Oregon, but it's Oregon. And it's Minnesota without the bugs and cold. It's a temperate rainforest rather than the southern range of the boreal forest. So the forests are quite different, but we still love them. And it's one of the things that our hearts are always here. To be honest about it, they've never left. Includes our kids who weren't born in Minnesota, but they all think of themselves as Minnesotans. They all have Vikings caps, and we have a family football league, fantasy football, that kind of stuff. But yeah, so it's great to be back, and yeah. Job.
What did you teach and where?
I taught political science I started at the University of Pennsylvania for 5 years, and we lived in Philly, and couple of small town kids from the boondocks and the big city, I thought it was a tremendous experience.
My first time going there, we're entering with our newly adopted son, and there's a big sign that says, Philadelphia isn't as bad as Philadelphians say it is. So I wasn't sure where we were headed.
But that it turns out that was really true, wasn't it?
It was a great place.
Yeah, but Philadelphians did badmouth it. Why are you here? Are you crazy? Are you nuts? Great place. Sure.
Well, as he said, Ely will steal your heart. I guarantee it. We got off the plane. Normally we would drive here, but circumstances prevented that this year. And so we flew. We had our rental car. We headed out, and I said, this is where I need to be. We're living in the city, and I saw all these trees, and there weren't lines of cars in back of us. And also, some of the teachers that are here, the schools then were great. We had lots of classmates that went on to do great things. And our best friends to this day, even though we live far apart, are the ones we made going to school in Ely.
Anything more?
You taught her Reed?
Pardon me?
What'd you teach?
Oh, Reed College in Portland, Portland, Oregon. Bill Hohengarten actually was in my classes. You know. I don't see him today. He's not here, right? Bill? No, okay.
You also said you had a story about right here.
Oh, the story about right here was that this was this place where I'm standing on right now was part of the earliest mines here. And this might well have been right where my grandfather was selling these pots and pans to the miners. To the back of us here was Calumet location. This is later, but Calumet location, which they transferred miners from northern Michigan to Ely to get the mine started, because underground mining isn't a place where you put amateurs. You just don't do that. You put people who know what they're doing, hard rock miners, they're called. So those came from Michigan, and then the immigrants gradually, got integrated into it and became hard rock miners themselves. But that was Calumet, and Sandy Point here was the elite of the mining company. They wanted to segregate their management away from the riffraff, to be honest about it. But that was also moved into Ely. And all the houses here, when the pit started to form and became too close, they moved Calumet into Ely.
I live on Thin Hill.
Yeah.
And it's opened up now. I'm not finished.
Yeah.
Is it true though? I had heard that the Finns were on the north tracks and Sylvanians on the south.
Oh man, you're asking me a question. I could go on for hours.
That's why we're married. We're an interracial marriage, sort of. Yeah, the Slovenian and the Finn.
There's a story here too. My mother, or she was telling my mother this. You tell the story.
Our daughter, we were living in Oregon. We had no relatives nearby. Our family was it. And so we came to visit, and Grandma Capsch, his mother, took our daughter, who was about 2 or 3 years old, downtown and walked around and introduced her to people, and everyone was a cousin. And she came back, she was so excited. She had met all these relatives. And I looked at my mother-in-law and said, and now I know why he married me. I was the only one he wasn't related to in this town.
What did she say?
And she said, and what was your excuse?
As I said, I wasn't close to you. But you had a question though that I didn't. Oh, yeah, this stuff about Thin Hill and Slovenia, it's true. The Finns were concentrated on that part of the town in Thin Hill. The Slovenes were mostly in the eastern part of the city. And there were conclaves like that all over the place. And this is often cited as about how these immigrant groups didn't get along. But this is what I meant by a social scientist. I see this stuff all the time. I'm trained to look at it, but I really believe that the primary social distinction in Ely in those years wasn't because on ethnicity, it was on knowing the English language. So if you knew the English language, you were part of the elite. The newspaper was owned by people who were native English speakers, first English speakers, and under the mining company personnel, almost uniformly and so on. But the immigrant groups, the Thin Hill and the Slovenian groups, they lived like that because that's how they got along. That they were talking to people who understood them, and they could converse. You couldn't have that mixer at first. But I'll tell you one of the things that happened. The first generation of immigrants in Ely, it is just absolutely amazing how much they were intermarrying. So that there was a lot of that. They got together. And the thing that unified them is that they were working in the mines, which is very close. And at that time, because of the history, the geological history of the Ely mine compared to the Sedan mine, these were very dangerous mines, very dangerous, because the ancient volcano had broken up the mineral deposit into small chunks rather than large pieces. If you ever gone in the underground mine in Sedan, they mined going up. In Ely, they use caving, and I'll get into that, but anyway, it was dangerous, and that's what helped integrate the group. They shared the danger, and they were dependent upon each other in the mine. Everybody in the mine had a partner. Nobody ever worked alone, always at least two together in the mine. And there was other mining terms like working back to back, which meant that two groups of miners were working so that they were going this way at each other. That was a huge no-no. And, every miner was aware of that. And so, yeah. But it was a very ethnic town, and that's why Zoptic has this, all these porchetta and everything else.
Thank you.